So it's like the weird thing is, it's like this is what makes me think like it's a possibility that Ben's meeting with Jacob was genuine originally. That they do say later that Jacob really is associated with that place. Ben was not 100% lying about that.
Yeah.
You know. And so I just this is why that story is so
But at the
frustrating.
same time, but it's funny. Yeah, that's really weird because right, the final word on Jacob is he's hands off the entire time.
Right.
So which
Right.
is it?
Yeah. See, and this is what makes me think something happened there, you
Yeah.
know, and we're seeing the residue of like a storyline changing directions.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why I think that why I'm trying to come up with a kind of alternative version of what was originally going on there. One that might be ultimately more clear.
But then why come back and say that's where Jacob was, unless you're trying to give
Mhm.
validity to when Ben goes there the first time?
Yeah, yeah, like it's really strange. That is literally the same episode um where we get the conversation between Ben and the man in black where he says, "Yeah, when I went in there, I was pretending.
Yeah.
I was just as surprised as you were when things started flying around."
Yeah.
You know? Uh and so it's like that it really seems like and them saying like someone else is being using it. It's like they're bridging the gap, but it's like they shouldn't have needed to.
Yeah.
The reveal should have been that Jacob never had anything to do with that place. That it was all lies. Like everyone that went in there was lying.
Okay, let's look at this from a structural writing perspective. They need to figure out Alana needs to figure out where Jacob is. Okay.
Mhm.
So what the way she figures that out is the map, the knife in the map on the wall has a statue, right? The
Yeah.
foot or whatever.
Yeah.
So okay, because I'm like we're trying to go in reverse of this. Like, how do we get to the beginning, right? So
Mhm.
so you want to end with Alana finding Jacob at the statue. How does she find him there? She needs to be led there. Where is she going to look for Jacob if it's not there? Now, the simple answer would be Jacob came to her off island and said, "If you ever come to the island, find me at the statue." That's the simple
Right.
answer that they didn't do.
Right. They
Okay, so
could have easily done that since they portrayed Jacob as always being there at the
is
statue.
always being there. So like any real follower of Jacob knows he's always at the statue. Like that's what they could
Yeah.
have said.
Yeah.
So okay, so we don't have that. The second idea is okay. She needs to go to a place where she thinks Jacob would be, but then she gets led to the true place. So where's a place Jake she would think Jacob is? Jacob's cabin.
Mhm.
Okay. Now if she thinks Jacob is there at Jacob's cabin, that means he had to have been there at one point, and
Yeah.
like for real. Like it can't just
Yeah.
be a mistake. So then they have to say he was here at a certain point and someone was using it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the way to get away with doing this, instead of it, is to say this point at which Jacob was truly in the cabin was at a point we never saw in the show.
Mhm.
It
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't when we first see the cabin.
Right.
When we first see the cabin, that's still Man in Black.
It's already, yeah,
It's
changed it.
already. So that does that work? Then
Yeah,
does
yeah,
that?
yeah.
I mean, but does that?
No, I think that's the story. I think that's exactly what the official correct explanation is.
Hmm.
Yeah. But doesn't that seem like weirdly convoluted? Like it's just hard for me to understand why they would do that. Why the need to legitimize, is that a word?
Well, because of what I said, they need to figure out how to get Alana to where Jacob is.
But why couldn't I don't understand why she had to go through the cabin, and why couldn't she just march straight to the statue? The line that they said to Frank and like other people to like see if they were in with Jacob was, what lies in the shadow of the statue. It seems like they're set up to know to just go straight there. You know, and so it's like, why do they need to make a pit stop? Why do they not know to go straight to the statue? Why didn't they write it that way? You know? It feels like it's a waste of time unless the only thing it accomplishes is like wrapping up this loose end of the cabin. I mean, they
They get to
burn
burn it
it,
down. Yeah.
you know, and they kind of explicitly tell us that no, none of that was Jacob, you know. But the problem is that trip makes the cabin associated with Jacob. Even though we never saw him in there. And so I feel like, I mean, maybe it's just a product of they wanted to get rid of the cabin, they wanted to make a statement on it, and they had to tie it in with Jacob to make that work. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they didn't know about the statue. I mean, maybe they knew the phrase, but it's not until she sees the image of the statue that she realizes what it means. I don't know. I don't
And it's
know.
strange because they see the image of the statue and they know where to go.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, that means they know where that thing is. They just
Yeah.
didn't know that he was there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. That's weird. That's all kinds of weird.
Like they could have had different lines there. They could still go to the cabin. They could
Mhm.
still have a reveal that the cabin wasn't associated with Jacob, and they potentially could have done that without saying that. Well, that was never Jacob, but like he was there a long time ago
I agree.
before all that.
They could have had somebody else. I forget who's with her in that group, but they could have said, "Oh, we need to find Jacob. I know where he is." And they're led to Jacob's cabin, and she looks around and goes, "Jacob was never here."
Hmm.
And she goes, "I know where he is."
Yeah,
And then they go to the statue,
yeah,
and they can
yeah,
still
yeah,
burn it
yeah.
down.
Yeah, that's
Um,
almost what they did.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, they did the version that's a lot harder to deal with.
And that's what's weird is, right? She says Jacob hasn't been here for a long time.
Hmm.
The cabin was made in the 70s because Horace built it.
Right.
So,
Couldn't have
and
been that long.
it couldn't have been that long, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we're talking, you know, what, 30 years at most?
hmm, wow. It's like it almost can make sense, but it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So like either it's just really sloppy storytelling that they wanted to accomplish certain things and they just decided to do it in this way and it creates problems. I think that's possible, but I also want to throw out the idea that, this is a weird byproduct of their shifting plans for the cabin,
Hmm.
and that they're trying to reconcile their original idea of Jacob really is in the cabin with their new idea of the man in black was using the cabin.
It makes me think they wanted to say that Jacob was in the cabin in the 70s for some reason. Like, like he was there, but then why would you do that? Only if you want to talk, I mean, maybe talk to Dharma or
Hmm.
have the Widmore group of others commune with Jacob. But I don't think you can't say Jacob's always been hands off and have Jacob's cabin.
Yeah,
I don't understand
I agree.
unless it's not a place you're supposed to go find him, even though that's what they
Right,
did.
right.
Like it's just a place where he just hangs out.
But I will say that Hands Off Jacob was a later thing.
Hmm.
So original Cabin Jacob doesn't have to be Hands Off Jacob before they say that, you know?
No, but I mean, Alana saying he used this place in the past. doesn't gel with hands off Jacob.
Yeah. I agree. But even at that point, they haven't said hands off Jacob.
Oh yeah.
Like hands off Jacob is season 6. That's the first time he really, because in that first scene he brings people to the island. It's not really clear, I think, that he doesn't get involved. It's really his conversation with Richard where he says all that,
Mhm.
you know. So I think they haven't committed to that idea yet. It's something they have to do. Well, they don't have to, but it's a reasonable choice to make given the story they're trying to tell.
Was there ever a point where they said Richard talked to Jacob and he went to go get Jacob's lists?
Yes. So yeah. So this is. I mean, that's what Ben says when he's on the verge of killing Jacob. He talks about how he wanted to meet with Jacob, but he was told to be patient, and he said, and Richard would come back with your lists, and I followed all your orders, and you didn't. What about me?
Mhm.
But yeah, Ben explicitly says no, it was Richard who brought the lists. And I think part of that was to again, like, solidify that Ben never met with Jacob. If there were lists from Jacob, they didn't come from him.
Yeah, and Richard knows that Jacob is at the statue.
Yeah, he's the one who takes him to the statue. So yeah. I don't know where Ben
Yeah,
ever
see,
gets
that's
the
what it is.
idea.
I think that's what it is. That's what it is. Maybe that's what it's. So I'll say it 5 times. They are wrong that that's Jacob's cabin. That was their misinterpretation. Richard knew where Jacob really was at the statue. The others thought Jacob's cabin was where you go to talk to Jacob. That's why Ben brings Locke there. He's wrong about that.
The others
Uh,
think that, though Richard knows it's not true.
but
He
Richard
doesn't
knows
tell
it's
them.
not true, and he doesn't tell them. So that's why Alana thinks that, because she's another.
Okay. But I mean, she does talk to Jacob. I mean,
Well, Jacob comes to visit her, but in terms of being on the island, I mean,
right.
in terms of the others' mythology, that's Jacob's place, right?
But isn't it? I mean, it's just weird. Like, I mean, we don't see the conversation between them. And I know Jacob is not the most forthcoming person on the show, but it's like if he's going to go to Alana and say, I need you to come to the island, um, I think some stuff's about to go down, and when you
Yeah,
get
she was
there,
just wrong.
come find me. Like, I
Yeah,
just don't understand why
he
he
didn't
wouldn't,
tell her. He just didn't tell her.
why he would, why he would. But then, like, where? Okay, so she's an other though. And that's where she gets the idea that he's in the cabin. And he knows that the others think that. So he but what about the ash line?
The ash line, well, I mean, that's a separate thing.
Because the ash is something that we see Bram has it, they have it at the temple. Seems like an others thing.
Hmm.
Um are we saying that the others spread the ash around the cabin because they thought Jacob was in there
To
mistakenly?
protect Jacob from the smoke monster.
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe.
is that
Yeah, it's another. Yeah, why? Yeah, if that's Jacob's cabin, then it is a holy place, just like the temple.
mhm.
It's worthy of protecting.
Mhm. And they're just all wrong.
They're wrong. I mean, it's clear that they're wrong. So
Oh my
yeah, I
god.
think that's it. I think that's the problem. We were taking Alana at her word. Like, oh, she goes to the cabin, so it must have been true that that's where you can find Jacob. No. And she's wrong. She's wrong about her interpretation that Jacob used to be there. Jacob was never there.
The final reveal about the cabin is wrong. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was wrong, right?
I don't know, but
I
it's a
mean,
plausible theory.
Jacob is always at the statue. I think it makes more sense that Jacob is always at the statue and they got it wrong. Man in Black goes into the Jacob's cabin and he pretends to be Jacob, and that's where the lore of that's Jacob's cabin comes from. And it gets passed down to the others' mythology, but they're wrong about it. Richard is the only one who truly
Okay,
knows, and maybe Richard wanted that lie to be perpetrated because he doesn't want anybody else to know where to find Jacob to protect Jacob.
but Jacob
Which is
leaves.
a really good, which actually is a really good ruse, by the way. You know, if you wanted to protect somebody, let everybody else think they're at location A instead of location B.
But Jacob leaves the sort of note there saying, with the statue. You know, that means that he.
Yes, and maybe that's who broke the ash line. Like that was supposed to be. I forget when we see the ash line, but maybe that's the idea that somebody came into the cabin, and that person
You
is.
don't think Jacob left that message?
I do. Maybe I mean maybe yeah maybe Jacob came and said okay they're gonna come to the island need to find me. They don't know where I am. They're gonna come look for me at the cabin. I'm gonna show them where I really am with this message.
So he anticipated that she would come to the cabin, but he couldn't just tell her, "I'm not at the cabin. Go to the statue."
Well, part of it is okay the production aspect that they want the cabin to be revisited and then destroyed. So part of that, you know, you have to factor that into the writing, right? So I think that might be enough cover for why he doesn't just explicitly say where to find me. Or you could say, well, he knows she knows the phrase, you know, what lies in the shadow of the statue, and put two and two together. But
Hmm.
I think it's more plausible just to put her in the group of people who don't know shit and who misinterpret things, and she's like the others who think they. I think if you just want to make it as simple as possible, and you only have you put a line down the middle. You put most people will fit on one side of the line who thought that was Jacob's cabin. And on the other side of the line, you have Jacob and Richard, who are the only two people who know where Jacob really is. And I think that makes it work. If I think it works best if most people are just wrong. That's horrible.
Yes. Yes. Your theory, it works, but goddamn, it's frustrating.
And I think that explains why the ash was broken. That was supposed to tell us somebody came in there. Not that something necessarily got out, but somebody came in.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, no, but that was my assumption already. Um, okay.
Unless that broken ash was supposed to be done a long time ago and that's how the smoke monster got in there to begin with.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah. That's
know.
what I mean. That
Yeah.
was what I assumed that
When
meant.
did we see the ash line broken? Do you remember?
Well, the first time we see it broken is that scene.
What scene?
The Alana scene.
Okay, okay, then
I
yeah,
mean,
then that makes sense. They're like, okay, someone had to put up this note where Jacob was going to be, you know, the note to go to the statue. Oh, it was Jacob when he came in and put it in there and he broke the ash line.
like
That's telegraph.
accidentally
That's tele.
or
Well, yeah, or I don't know what word you want to use, but it got broken, and it's just telling the audience that somebody came through there, which because those are the only two things that are different about the cabin, right? Is the ash line is broken, and there's a new piece of information inside.
right, but see, I think the ash line being broken is kind of a retcon because they want to make it consistent. The If the line was complete, then the smoke monster shouldn't have been able to get in there. And he has been in there.
Okay,
So
okay,
so
okay.
I
Yeah, it
think
could
they're
go either way. That could go either way.
I think that's what they're trying to tell us, that like
Yeah,
at some point we just didn't see it
yeah.
before, but
No, I
like
like that better. Yeah, I don't like Jacob walking through the ash line, but he's got to leave the note though, right? So that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
I have no doubt in my mind he leaves the note. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But how does he leave the note? Like, I don't know.
He
That's a
just walks
smaller.
in and puts it up. Like, why wouldn't he be able to leave the note?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird to me. It's just weird to,
I agree it's weird. I
you
agree it's
know.
weird. The whole scene's weird. And it's like, yeah, I mean, there is something sort of poetically lost about like the final cabin reveal is just like misinterpretations.
Yeah, Yeah. No, I think that's it. I think that's it. I think she was wrong. I think because she's thinking in her head Jacob was at this place. She never saw Jacob there. I don't think she ever saw Jacob there. So she's getting that information from somebody else. Who would she get that from? Who else thinks that's Jacob's cabin? The others thinks that's Jacob's cabin. She's getting that information from the others. We already know that others know shit about Jacob, so that's already wrong. But what's true about what she says and what fits in with the rest of the story overall is that somebody was pretending to be Jacob in there. And this way, it doesn't validate the idea that in Man Behind the Curtain or whatever, that's Jacob originally. And even though, maybe when they were writing the episode, that was quote unquote Jacob, their first iteration of Jacob was in
Mm-hmm.
there. But in terms of how the show ends and trying to tie it to that first reveal of the cabin, it doesn't have to validate that. So that mitigates the confusion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not a scene about saying, well, Jacob really was in there at one point. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, she's wrong about that. Jacob was never in there.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, you're inclined to believe her because she talks to
Well, there's a
Jacob.
long line of people you're inclined to believe,
I know, but like
and
she seems more.
it's the same line of people who are wrong.
I, but she seems more reliable than Ben. She
Mm-hmm.
seems more reliable than certain characters. We
Mm-hmm.
did see her in a scene with Jacob, so she seems like she should be
Look at it this
some
way.
kind of authority on him. So it's just I'm inclined to trust her
Mm-hmm.
her
I'm sure you
information.
are. Why wouldn't you be?
So that I'm just saying, like,
Think
why
about it this way. Think about it this way. Who are the characters we know knows where Jacob is?
Richard,
And
the man in black,
uh-huh. And Jacob.
and Jacob
Okay,
himself.
okay, himself. Okay, now those are the people we can prove know where Jacob is. We cannot prove anybody else knows where Jacob is. And I feel like that is the story. That's it right there. Like Alana didn't there's no objective evidence that she ever knew where Jacob was. Now, I think you got a good point about the phrase what lies in the shadow of the statue or whatever. That's a good thing, but that didn't lead her to the statue. So that wasn't something that told her that's where Jacob is, even though that's a phrase that they use.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think to me, I'm really starting to be really happy with this idea that they're just all fucking wrong. It's gonna help me sleep tonight. Because it really, yeah, it was really extra more confusing than the cabin has always been. But now I feel like it's a lot simpler, even with the idea that they changed. They most likely changed their idea of Jacob over time, and they, who was in the cabin or whatever the first time. I think it still works with how they ended the show that she's just wrong. That was her. That's just what the others thought, and they were wrong about it. At least during the time of Ben's reign of the others, Jacob was never in there, correct?
Yeah,
Most likely, right?
probably not.
That's generally the time of Alana's being. So like, she should be wrong about that because she's. I mean, if the others are wrong about it, then she should be wrong about it because the others are wrong.
Right.
And they had no reason to know it. And the other thing that led me to this was the fact that the list came from Richard, not Ben or anybody else. So they did so it was never a valid place to go to Jacob's cabin to talk to Jacob. That's not where Richard was going.
Right.
I'm trying to solve the cabin for you, man. I don't know why you're giving me such a hard time.
um
I'm sorry that the answer is most of the characters are wrong, but I think that fits in with the global theory of the show is that they were just operating on false information.
yeah. 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 I can't deny that that's pretty consistent theory. It fits in, like you said, with this theme that we've hit on about the show. It's just it's just it doesn't help me sleep at night uh because it's like the way they choose to tell us information about the cabin is by having everyone be wrong about it.
Yep. But that's the whole show. Everybody's wrong about everything. That was the alternate title of the Lost. It was everybody's wrong about everything.
Everybody's wrong about
This
everything.
fall on ABC.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just I find it frustrating sometimes to I mean, it was a problem throughout the show to not be able to rely on what people are saying, and I guess because like I said, because it's the final word on the cabin, there's no scene later that where it's like I was wrong about the cat. There's no thing about. I mean, they burn it, so obviously they're not going to talk about it anymore. So it feels like this should be the definitive cabin reveal. That's what I want it to be, based on the context.
Yeah.
And like I said, the authority of Alana, she
By the
unlike
way, Jacob let her explode, so I don't know how much authority she really had.
unlike most of the others, she did meet Jacob directly. We
Off
saw him talk
island.
to her
Yeah.
off the island, yes. And he was like a father to her. I mean, that implies a relationship that, I mean, of course, originally they were going to make her Jacob's daughter. So, I mean, I think these things are telling me that if she's talking about Jacob, then if she doesn't know what she's talking about, nobody does. I mean,
Yeah, you're
that's
right. Say that again. I think you're right. That's the problem with the show.
yeah. So I mean, I see what you're saying about. I'm just trying to explain like why I'm inclined to trust her.
hmm
Why that scene pulls me in the direction of
You're
believing
inclined to
what.
trust her because of 100,000 years of human evolution and what, like 20,000 years of human storytelling or something. I don't know how long we've been
Yes.
telling stories, but like
Yes.
that's why you're inclined to trust her because every other
Yes.
time you can trust what people say.
Well, but even in the context of Lost, where I know that, characters are unreliable and they draw conclusions and, they have interpretations and like I understand that like a lot of times they're wrong about stuff. Um, but I feel like typically when it's a big plot point like this and someone is just wrong about it, typically there's a reveal or something later where they say that they're wrong in some way. I mean, maybe not directly to the character, but there's something that kind of tells us that character was wrong, you
hmm
know? And that's sort of missing here. And uh uh you know, based on that, the finality of the statement and the authority, like all those things are different from the normal situation where some character says something and it's just their interpretation. Like typically they don't have all of these points in their favor. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? In Ben's case, he's a pathological liar who doesn't know anything, like who's never talked to Jacob and so on. So like, does he know about Jacob being in the cabin? Hell no. I
Yeah.
understand that, but that's clear. And he doesn't have the final word on the cabin, So it's just all those things aren't there typically with these situations. So that's why in this situation, although I understand the show's not like this in general, I'm pulled towards believing. I want
hmm
to believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying, and I guess like it's the first time I've really heard an explanation for the cabin that was like relatively consistent.
hmm
Um it's hilarious. I give it full points for comedy. Everyone's wrong about everything. The subtitle for Lost.
yeah.
But I can't say I find it satisfying.
No, it's not satisfying to be like everyone's wrong about everything. You can't trust anything anybody says. Yeah, no, that's definitely not sad, and that's it'll help me sleep at night because not because it's satisfying. That doesn't help me sleep. What helps me sleep at night is that like I said, I can separate the people who objectively know what was going on with that cabin and who subjectively know. And the
Right.
people who subjectively know are most likely wrong about it because of how they depicted everything.
Right. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
looking at this transcript. He isn't here, hasn't been in a long time. Someone else has been using it. Maybe that line. Oh, I wonder if that line is just supposed to mean. Although we know what we think that line means. He isn't here, hasn't been a long time. But what if that means the long? What if the long time is since Jacob put the map in the cabin? Like it's been a long time since Jacob nailed that map to the statue or the picture of the foot to the wall. Maybe that's
Okay.
all it means, and we were taking too much meaning out of that, or they were letting us take too much meaning out of that.
Oh. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? Like the long
Yeah.
time was between then and when Jacob was last there, the only time he was ever there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah.
But no, I
Right.
mean it kind of doesn't work because I think it's more about she's wrong that he ever used it. But
Right.
um, yeah, I don't know.
Well, cabin solved.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
welcome, America.
I think this is the closest we've ever come to making any sort of peace with the cabin, which I didn't. I literally said 20 minutes ago we would never do. Then
Yeah.
somehow we managed to do it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't, and it's really not satisfying just to say everybody's wrong. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Like that's not satisfying.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not. See, that's the thing. Yeah. Yeah. But it
it's
does
but
work.
it's consistent. That's the
Yep.
whether or not it's satisfying, it's still consistent.
That's the problem.
Um,
Like every other theory is either inconsistent or way too convoluted.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, it's like your theory is at least simple and consistent.
yeah. Occam's razor.
I can appreciate that, you know?